I think we're going to have a few other scragglers coming in, but thank you so much for coming to this section chair orientation. You guys have a big job ahead of you, and we just really appreciate you taking the time to do what you do. I have a great panel of speakers to talk to you guys about policies and procedures, what the bar is going through this year. You guys, please feel free to ask questions. They're here for you. This whole meeting is here specifically, we're holding this for you, to make your jobs easier and let us know what we can do to support you. And we're going to kick it off with our Executive Director, Jeff Davis, and we're going to give Ron Turner his turn to talk about the financials and responsibilities as section chairs that you guys have. We're going to introduce our new Director of ICLE, Michelle West. And I think most of you guys know Tanya Wyndham, our ICLE Sections Liaison. And we're going to turn it over to Carlise Greer from there. And Sarah Kuhl, the Director of Communications, is going to wrap it up. So with that, Jeff,
we're ready.
You can kick it off.
Okay.
We are ready. Thank you.
Well, first let me say welcome to the bar and welcome to the team. You can see these folks up here are part of your team. There's also about another 15 employees of ICLE, some of whom are in the back of the room, meeting planners, that make sure that these seminars that we do, these institutes that we do, are the most excellent programming that we can deliver to our members for the best value that we can give them. And let me thank you for being part of our team and agreeing to do this and volunteering. I believe the sections are really the heartbeat of the bar. I believe what you do through your leadership and what you provide to the members who decide voluntarily to be members of your section. You have to pay mandatory bar dues, but you don't have to pay mandatory section dues. And so every member that checks that box every year to become a member of your section is doing it for a reason. They're doing it because of your leadership and because they can rely on you to deliver the programming that they have become expected to receive as a member of the section. And our sections are growing. We have more and more people joining the sections. Our institutes are among some of the best programming around. We get folks from other states who come here to attend our institutes because of the value and the excellent instruction that you provide to your members. So first, just let me begin by thanking you. You don't have to do this, and you do it out of a spirit of service to your profession. You do it because you want to improve the quality of legal services. You do it because you want to bring people together and network and bring other practitioners and experts in the field with judges and also members of the bar who care about the issues that you care about. And you're here today because you want to do the best you can for your members, and we're here to help you do that. And I want you to know that my direct dial is in the bar directory. You can call me anytime. You can email me, and you can contact anybody up here if you have questions along the way, because we want to assist you, and we want to make this as easy as possible. And that's really why we developed this policy and these new procedures. We took in ICLE from the University of Georgia a few years ago, and over the time that we've had ICLE here at the State Bar as a State Bar program, we've tried to establish what we think are best practices and protocols. What we found from the ICLE that existed in Athens, we found a lot of great things about ICLE, but we also discovered some things that we didn't like, and some of that related to some of the accounting practices that were going on in Athens, and we wanted to make sure that every seminar stood on its own. The process in Athens was there was really no accounting for individual seminars. So there were some sections that would have a seminar that frankly would make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in revenue, and other seminars would institutes and sections would lose that much money, and they offset one another from an accounting standpoint. But we didn't think at the bar that that was a fair approach. We didn't think that the sections who manage their funds and their expenses appropriately should be underwriting the sections who did not do so. And so we decided when we moved, we had ICLE here, that we would account for every seminar, every institute individually. And as part of that process, we wanted to ensure that every section was treated the same. We wanted to make sure that we had policies that were applied across the board, that every section didn't have a separate policy or a separate protocol or a separate practice. And so we've tried to establish standards. And in doing that, we developed this concept that Ron Turner, our CFO, is going to tell us more about, which is the good faith estimate. It's kind of based upon a concept of buying a house. I mean, the last thing you want to do when you buy a house is go to the closing table and the lawyer tells you got to bring a check for $10,000, right? And the reason you have a good faith estimate is you want both sides of a transaction to get together to know what they expect. We want to know what your responsibilities are, what your obligations are. No one wants to have the experience where they're coming to a closing table or after a deal is done that there's a surprise. And so what we've tried to do is have transparency in the process, and by doing that and to communicate with you, make you part of the process of finding the location, looking at the meeting space, deciding what kind of things you want to do, and really making your dreams a reality within a budget. And we can only do that if we sit down and talk about what our budget is going to be, what we project. And we can project things pretty well, because the good news about being at the State Bar is we have a lot of meetings at the State Bar. And we're able to leverage now better. We're able to get much better deals than ICLE in Athens was able to get, because we can bundle events together. We know certain sections are having events at similar or same hotels, and we can actually bundle deals together and pass that along to you and your membership. We're not trying to make money here. This is a nonprofit entity. What we're trying to do is break even and provide the best value that we can for the members, and try to charge members what is appropriate. And at the end of the day, if we do our job well, then we should come in at 98 to 100% of what our estimate was. And we've been doing that because we're good at estimating, and we're also very good at controlling cost and working with you. And we've had some great institutes. I know some of the folks in here who have just been through some of our summer institutes will tell you that we've had wonderful response from our members. The good faith estimate process has not produced any surprises. In fact, a lot of the surprises have been to the positive side, which is good. And it provides transparency to all of you, so you know what you're getting, and you can make decisions. You can decide if you want to have the cocktail reception with the judges. You can decide if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, you need to figure out, and with our help, and that's where we assist you, going and getting sponsorships and things like that. We want you to have the best seminar that you can have. If you dream it and we can afford it, we'll make it happen. And so I just want to encourage you as leaders to continue to volunteer as you have, and to continue to bring other folks into the section to help you in this regard. All of you have executive committees. I encourage you to reach out to to those who are in leadership to help go through the process. When we do have these meetings with various sections, we generally meet with 2 or 3 of you from the section, because I think in the incubator of ideas, it's better to have more people at the table. And you can have a wonderful seminar. So we're here to help and make sure that you can have the best year of leadership that you can. We provide the best programming to our members, and we do it at an affordable price. So thank you for your volunteering. I'm going to turn it over now to Ron Turner, who's going to get get down in the weeds on accounting. But the good news is if you don't have an accounting mind, we can help you. We're here. You can reach out at any time to discuss the good faith estimate and how we derive the figures that we derive. But again, I want to thank you for serving. Ron?
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. I wanted to, again, thank everyone for coming here as well, and also thank everyone for volunteering of your time. I know it takes a lot of time and effort out of your daily work schedules. I wanted to discuss a little bit what the good faith estimate is, and included in your packet, we have our good faith estimate policy. If you look on the back of that first page, that basically is the policy that covers what the good faith estimate is. We try to prepare these far enough in advance, or our goal is to have these about 4 months in advance of any seminar taking place. So we're not trying to run these at the very end or be surprised at the very end. So four months is our kind of minimum guideline. Our goal is actually to be a little bit further out than that, but we're really thinking 4 months is kind of a minimum time frame in order to get a lot of these programs going, especially the larger institutes. I won't cover in detail what that policy is, but basically the policy discusses the revenues and the expenses and a little bit of how everything is divided up. But more importantly, there is an example good faith estimate in there, and it's on that other next page in your packet. And what that basically does is it divides how we envision the income and the expenses. As Jeff mentioned, it's a good faith estimate, so it's comprehending both sides. The ICLE column is items that we think that we're responsible for both an income standpoint and an expense standpoint. And then the column labeled chair is really the section expenses here, and that is the items that we envision that the sections are responsible for both an income perspective and an expense perspective. The good faith estimates are put together as an estimate, so they're not going to be spot on. I mean, it's impossible to get there, but we are trying to shoot for that 97, 98, 99% effectiveness. And with our planners in back that have been doing it for a while, and with Tanya up here, we've been doing it, so they've got a lot of contracts in place. We know what our costs are, and they try to do a lot of effort up front to help everyone. So no one is surprised by what any of these costs are. In addition, on the bottom of the good faith estimate, what we are also providing is basically the information there for everyone to be able to sign off on it so that you're comfortable with it, we're comfortable with it. This is a summary page of what the good faith estimate is. If you ever want to get into the weeds, we have backup for each one of these schedules so that if there is staff travel expenses there or if there's printing, we have subschedules in back of each one of these as to how these costs were arrived at, so they weren't just guessed at. We may have a number of people attending and the cost per meal. So those are some of the examples of items that we have in back that will support any of these numbers. Included in here is an estimate of an overhead factor. We factor in basically a 30% overhead factor, and it's 30% of the revenue, of the total revenue from registration that's brought in. That 30% overhead cost is really meant to cover all the salaries in ICLE, because the bar does not cover, and your bar dues do not cover any of those costs. So the registration fees have to do more than just cover the hard costs of producing those seminars. Those costs have to cover the cost of food, of staff, rent, overhead, staff benefits, anything associated with that, including travel. So there's a number of other costs that 30% factor relates to. Our goal, as Jeff mentioned, our goal is not to make a lot of money. Our goal is to try to be as revenue neutral and break even as possible. we're going to make it on some, we're not going to make it on others, but overall, that's what our goal is for each seminar. So we look at each seminar individually, or each institute individually, and the reason for that is we want to make sure that the programming that we're providing is of value to you. If people are not attending and they're not, obviously if they're not attending, then they're not finding it of value. We don't want to keep putting on those seminars that are not of value to your members. So that's one of the reasons why we're trying to keep track of this on an individual seminar by seminar basis to provide additional information to you. When we are having people sign at the bottom, it's an acknowledgement that they understand that this is our best guess and your best guess, because you could be estimating the number of people coming. It could be more than that, or it could be less than that. So again, these are all actual estimates of what we anticipate. Included in here, in the good faith estimates, many times we also have to pay for people that you may invite that are not paying. So if there's going to be non-paying attendees, whether they're judges or whether they're speakers, and they may get some of their CLE comped, there's still costs associated with that, meals, et cetera. So we factor in, when we're establishing what the costs are in the income, we try to factor in the number of paying people and the number of non-paying people as well. When the seminar is, or institute is completed, we try to have a final accounting. Sometimes, if it's a larger one, it may take a while for the hotel to provide the information to us. It could be 2, 3, 4 weeks for the hotel to ultimately provide the information to us, and then we may not agree with what they're providing. So we will have to go back and have discussions with them about what they think are the appropriate charges. But when all is said and done, we want to get all the accounting in as quickly as what we can. And then when that is done, if there is any balance due, hopefully it's close to what we anticipated or what you guys knew up front was going to be any type of money that the sections were going to be responsible for. In addition, from a financial perspective, each section has got, I'll call it an equity account. Kind of think of it as a pooled bank account. So if any of you want to know what your sections, I think Mary Jo provides that to you, quarterly. We can provide it to you monthly. But what that is that's kind of your equity, or basically your cash in the bank that you have available to operate with. So certainly, if you can't reach Mary Jo, you can call me, and I'll be more than happy to provide any of that information to you. And we can provide that monthly at this point in time if you so need it.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that the second half of the meeting. That those funds, not are only for the large institutes, but the hour lunch and learns we have, the breakfasts people have, sponsorships that you guys may, want to do. So if you all, and again, we'll get more in depth with this in the second half. If you all want balance requests done every month, let's talk about that, and we could, pick a date on the 5th. I'll get it to all of you guys, so you'll all, have an idea of what exactly is in your account. We could break it down where money's been spent, just to keep you all. It's a lot, because some of you guys really spend a lot of money, give a lot of money away, right? You know what I'm talking about. But we'll talk more about that. This is more CLE related, so.
In addition, I wanted to talk a little bit about the expenses that sometimes that you may be submitting to the bar. It's important because of our year end is June 30th, and we've just passed our year end. It's important that we get the expenses back, or all throughout the year, but especially at year end, to get it back from you guys on a timely basis. It's very difficult for us to keep the books open. And many times we will be getting receipts from, or requests for reimbursement that go back 6, 7, 8, 9 months. And it's almost back into the prior fiscal year. That creates, obviously, accounting issues. First of all, it's going back to a prior year, which we can't do. That year is closed. So second of all, we don't know. So when we're providing this information to you, we're in a way providing you false information because we didn't know that you had spent the money. So I want to encourage everyone please, as you're incurring your expenses, try to turn them into Mary Jo on a timely basis so that we can turn around, and we do our best to try to get it turned around and bills paid within a couple of weeks. So that's our goal. So if you could help us out by getting this turned in quicker, that would certainly help. So we are approaching year end, or we've passed year end, and I've sent out some emails that we would like to have everything closed by Friday of this week. So if you do have anything related to the prior fiscal year, if you could turn them into Mary Jo, I would certainly appreciate those.
And again, we'll talk more about the approval process and everything second hour of that, so.
If anyone has any questions, that's
Yeah, you
generally-
guys ask questions. This is for y'all. They're here for you guys. So does anybody have any questions so far? Or-
I think this is all really interesting. I've been involved with the environmental law sections board for a few years now, and even when I was just a member of the section and a new attorney, one of my colleagues was the section chair, and this would have been 6 years ago or so. And it took her entire term to wrangle the financials and and get a handle on how much money we had in the bank. So it's much easier now. It's certainly, I've noticed that this obviously has been a transition over the past couple of years with ICLA moving from Athens to Atlanta, but we just discovered last year that our section has had years where we've run in the red. We had no idea what the revenue, like the expense side of our seminar was. It was not something that was part of the discussion. We solicited sponsorships and promoted for registrants as best we could, and had no idea where the gap was, if there was a gap, until now. That I'm sure it's probably because of this process that you're undergoing as you take control of the, and so you are, it's illuminating that, but we weren't aware that we needed to be subsidized certain years by the more successful sections or what have you. Never looked at it like that. And so this is all very informative, but I guess I'm just kind of, we didn't have the knowledge before to know that we were, certain groups were being buoyed by others, so that wasn't a perspective that existed until very recently. So I think that you're communicating it to us now, but I think maybe it's our job to disseminate it to the rest of our officers and to our sections, the smaller sections like ours, who annually have, I think, really impactful and great seminars, but maybe that haven't been break-even or profit drivers every year. So I appreciate all this, but I think that for a lot of people, it's a whole new way of doing it, or there's a whole new basis for information sharing that just wasn't there before.
And I'd like to comment that we are, as far as I'm concerned, we're an open book for any section. I want 100% transparency. I'm not trying to hide anything or make any section look good or bad. The facts are the facts. So anyone who wants to see any of their financial statements on a monthly basis, I'm more than willing to just email me, and I'll be happy to send out whatever we've got to you.
I have a question. Mr. My name's John Swallow, and I'm with the Torts and Insurance Practice Session. Well, I've just done the Good Faith Estimate with you guys, and Tanya was great. I have a question I'm not really sure about. With our particular seminar, we've had 3 years of hurricane problems. We were canceled twice. You may remember that. If the estimated revenue, in other words, if we're expecting a certain amount of people and far less than that come, we don't expect that this year. But if that was to happen in the future, is the section responsible for that loss? In other words, under this new plan, are the sections underwriting ICLE for the expenses of the seminar that goes on?
Yes and no. And let me say that because we're just phasing this in, and to your point, to the extent that we've had issues with the insurance law seminar, and it seems to be a target. I mean, you guys can plan a seminar and just go ahead and name the hurricane. We ought to put it on the GFE. Just take bets on what the hurricane's going to be.
The mayor asked us not to come back.
Underneath all of this is reasonableness and flexibility. if a disaster occurs, if something happens where, we enter into a good faith estimate with you, and then just something goes off the rails and we don't expect it. We planned for X. We looked at past attendance, and so we made our decisions from an ICLE perspective based upon past attendance. How many rooms are we going to book? What's the attrition going to look like? How many meeting rooms will we need? And so we take a certain risk too on our side of the ledger because we're responsible for certain expenses. And so we haven't had a situation occur like you described where the expenses were so upside down. And that's a time when we would just sit down and we'd try to work it out. I mean, we'd look at your balances. We would look at our exposure. We would look at your exposure. We would look at the good faith estimate that we entered into. And then we would sit down and figure out what the best approach was, which was fair. And so at the end, I can't tell you a hard and fast rule of what it would look like. Our hope is 95 to 98% of the time, we're going to end up pretty close to what we anticipate. But if something doesn't go well, we're not here to bankrupt a section, except maybe the bankruptcy law section. We're not here to bankrupt any sections. We're not here to try to put you in an untenable situation. We're going to make our best estimates with you based upon the information we have. We'll get better, obviously, as time goes on. We've been doing this now about a year and a half, and our estimates are getting better. Our planners are getting better at estimating. Our cost of our food is going down because we're getting better at predicting how many people will actually eat the food. We were over-ordering. So now we've kind of figured out where that is. So over time, we're getting better on our side, which I think will inure to your benefit. But in the event that there's a disaster or the hurricane or something like that happens, we'll be reasonable. And we'll sit down and work with you to the benefit, obviously, of the section. Because as I said at the beginning of this, I believe sections are the heartbeat of the bar. You provide the most value to the bar. Everyone has to pay their $254 every year to be a member of the bar, just for the privilege of practicing law. But the people who give money to your section do so voluntarily because they want a value, and you provide that value. And one of the things, like speaking to environmental law, one of the things we'll work with you with over time, because you are a smaller section, we can look at your numbers and maybe make a recommendation next year that you raise your dues a little bit. Maybe you go from, I don't know if you're 25, 30, 35, maybe you go up $10. Those are some of the things that we can talk about and help you with in making those decisions. So you're not alone anymore in this. You're not just going to be getting your budget at the end of the year and no one's telling you what to do. You're not getting things from ICLE in Athens, a bill after the fact that doesn't tell you what it's for. You're going to know all along the way. You're going to be in the process helping us make these decisions, because as you're planning your seminar, we're also planning the operation side of it. We're having to engage with you, and we want to engage with you to do that. So the short answer is we hope that doesn't happen. In the event of just a calamity or some sort of disaster, we'll deal with it and work with you.
And just to follow up, and that's exactly what's happened here. We honestly didn't know how many people to expect this year. We had to change time of the year because we weren't going to take that chance again. And so when I signed the good faith estimate, we didn't know if we were going to have 10 or 12 or how many people. But I would like to tell you that Tanya and your staff did a great job getting the information out there. And our numbers were fine, really because of the efforts of what ICLE did. So I felt like, we had signed the good faith estimate, and then I felt like ICLE stepped up to try to get that number as high as they could. But I just wanted to-
And that's the benefit of the good faith estimate, because you have two sides, and we both have a vested interest in making sure people are there. We're relying on an attendance number, and we don't just put the number in and walk away from it. We have a marketing responsibility. We have a communications department that's putting out information on social media, that's trying to get people to these seminars. We want to hit the number too. And you're absolutely right. Our team at ICLE is cognizant of that. The meeting planner who's assigned to your seminar knows that and is watching the numbers. I get a daily report on registrations. When they look like they're not moving along, we're pushing out material. We're pushing out email blast. We're asking you to come up with some ideas about how to market. So we're engaged with you. We're in this together to make sure exactly what you described. You have the people there that we've estimated, and we hope we have more.
Thank you.
I have a marketing question.
Betty, can you stand up and say what section you're with, please?
The general practice and trial section. My marketing question is this. When ICLE was doing it in Athens, they would send a brochure to the whole bar for your seminars. So, you had everybody knew about it. Now, you only send to just the section, is that correct?
Generally, that's the case. The cost of...
I have gone to other sections and say, would you put this on your website for us, or send it a broadcast email out, but, so we're not really hitting as many people as we used to.
Well, actually, I would say that we're hitting more because we're targeting marketing. We're not just blasting it. We're not sending. Remember the old days, if you remember them? Those brochures went in the garbage in my law office. I mean, I didn't, they came about this thick, and I never opened them up. Maybe in March when I needed a CLE, I would open them up, but I bet a show of hands here, how many of you actually opened those and went through every single one of them? I mean, some of you did, that's great, but most of you didn't raise your hands. Only 3 of you did. And what we determined is in a digital age, in a marketing age, in a, kind of a Twitter, Facebook, hitting people where they are, targeting, we are getting more response because we're actually sending emails and tweets to people who are going to read them and people who will respond. We're not sending out to, blasting out to everybody. If you are a bankruptcy attorney, you don't want to see the criminal law and real estate brochures. You have no interest in them. And so what we're doing is trying to digitally market, and there are times where there will be crossover between sections. There will be a security law seminar that's talking about criminal issues or that sort of thing, and so the sections may work together. And all you have to do is if you have an event which you think another section would have an interest in, all you're required to do under our rules is contact that chair, and we will help you do that. Mary Jo will help you put you in touch with that person who's the chair, and they can authorize you in your section to blast out to their members the information about your seminar.
I'm trying to get this thing to work, but it's not going to. Yes, so I'm seeing more and more of that, and again, this is a topic that we're going to talk more about in the second hour, is cross-promoting. Always glad to do it, but no, I do need to get authorization from that section chair, and nobody, well, I take that back, one time.
It's rare.
Yeah, it's very rare. You guys are doing it more and more, and that's what we want. I mean, if you guys think that 3 other sections can benefit by something that you all are holding, by all means, yeah. I mean, it takes me no time to get approvals, and then we'll loop them in too. Yeah, so there's just a process we have to go through just to be respectful of other sections. Because sometimes there will be a no. So anyway, go ahead.
But those are good questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Betty.
Who else?
Patrick Fagan, Military Veterans Law Section. Where is the form or format for submitting expenses?
I can send it to you. It's on our site, but I'll send it to you. Just shoot me an email tomorrow and I'll get it to you.
Great, thank you.
Okay? Who else? Yes.
Mark Efron, e-discovery and use of technology section.
And thank you for coming, because y'all have been really quiet for the past few years. So, we
Well, we're
appreciate
new,
it.
this is my co-chair.
Yes.
So just a quick question, are there any guidelines out there if you're looking at doing a seminar, in terms of cost, a seminar at Marietta Street versus off-site? Are there target cost per attendee, how does it compare? Is that information we can see kind of before we go through the good faith estimate process to judge whether we want to go down that route or
But I
not?
think what they're talking about specifically, some of the programs that I do are the 2-hour programs, the lunch and learns, they're on a much smaller scale, where this is not part of that process. The good faith estimate and the large breakouts are for full day events that ICLE puts on, 6 or 8 hours or 2-day events. So if that's what you're talking about,
I'm thinking more of a full day event where you're going to have a meal and,
Yeah,
cost differences. Yeah.
and then you'll work with the ICLE.
And we can kind of give you an overview of what that would look like versus, we can start with a budget. You can look at your account and say, this is what we think we have to spend, this is how much we want to charge. Or we can give you some ideas just based upon other seminars. The good news is we've done a lot of seminars. We've done everything from the lunch and learns where we served, a lunch that cost everybody, $15 with a small registration fee. We've done webinars, which are very inexpensive to do, or we've done a $500,000 institute. We've done it all, and we can do it all. So what I would encourage you to do is because you haven't done any seminars yet, is to think about doing something on a smaller scale. Obviously, things are much less expensive here. We don't have to pay room cost. You look on the GFE, you will see if you go off-site, you're going to be paying conference room space. You're going to be paying more money for food when you go to a hotel. Coffee costs more than gold. It's unbelievable to me. Ivory can tell you that. A pot of coffee, an urn of coffee is about $500. It's ridiculous. And so we can do it a lot less expensive here at the bar. And so, and that's the flexibility we have. But we know there are some, there are some sections like we're doing a business law institute. A lot of the business law folks are up in the Atlanta Financial Center around Buckhead. They really don't want to come down here. And so they've made the decision that to attract more people, they really need to hold the seminar in the financial district around Buckhead. It costs a little bit more money. We have to raise the registration cost a little bit to do that. But working with the section, we've decided that benefits the section because you'll have many more people in attendance if you have it there versus requiring all those lawyers to come down here. And those are the decisions that we make together working with you.
And with you guys being, starting to become more active, we'll talk out what you want to do, and it may be something I could just handle easily enough, and if it's a more involved process, then you go on over to ICLE. So we'll just get that conversation.
Part of the cost that people really don't even factor in is, and while we do our best to bargain with all the hotels, audio video is a huge cost when you show up at any of these hotels. It's not just the food. You don't think about audio video. That's another cost. You don't think about parking. If it's not self-parking and if there's valet and some other stuff there, that's another cost. So we try to factor all these costs in. So as you're thinking about the programs you're doing, you want to factor in about everything that you could probably think of.
I was just gonna make a remark. What we do as a section is do a budget every year, so we know what the section assessment is, we know we're gonna have some board meetings, and we kind of know what we're gonna have at the end of the year. And it might be an idea for some of the sections to do that, so they know how much money they may have to play with.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, so David Winter, the bankruptcy law section. With respect to advertising regarding the programs, and I know that used to get those, and I used to go through them because end of the year, sports, all that sounds fun, I'd go. The problem with the email, the way we're doing it now, one spam filters, I'm the section chair, and I didn't get to save the date for my own conference in December. I went to the website from my phone and did a search for it. It's not on the website, the state bar. So if we're gonna rely on technology and tweeting and the like, we really need to be careful about who's getting it and whether we can make it more in the forefront to people that it's there, whether you share email addresses with section numbers so they can send it out reminders to each other just to let them know, because I can get it around the spam filter. But I know in the last couple of years, judges, members of my section, myself, have a hard time figuring out when our conference is, and I assume other people probably have the same issue.
Well, and we'll work with you on that. I mean, we'll
Something to work
be, absolutely. I mean, we don't have a perfect system. We have decided to go to e-marketing because it's just cost prohibitive. I mean, sending out brochures to 40,000 members of the bar is it's $20,000 to do that. I mean, it's just a lot of money, and your sections can't afford that. And we can't. So we've got to figure out a way to get around these spam filters and innovative ways to market and let our members know. We know that's a challenge, and we know it happens.
Rebecca Tidings, Local Government Law Section. I'm assuming since our City County Attorneys Institute is on the front end of MLA in September, that this process is already complete for that meeting.
It is.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anybody else for right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi.
Wait.
There's a reason for that. I go around for the family law section, and I come bearing questions from our executive committee. And just, they're short and sweet, but first goes to the webcast. I believe that the institutes are cast later on, and there's an income that is recovered from the webcast. How is that income treated, and is there a 30% fee, overhead fee, that's cast against the webcast? That's the first question, and the second question. The third question is, what is covered in that 30% overhead fee? And on your GFE, there are different line items for staff travel and labor. And is that included in the 30%? And if not, let us know how it differs. And does ICLE take a percentage of any of the other charges like AV and technology? Those are the questions from my section. I'd also like to say that from my perspective, coming off of the Family Law Institute, which we just had, I had a delightful experience with Tanya and Mary Jo. It was wonderful, and nothing is ever perfect, but the imperfections are less difficult to deal with if you feel supported. And I felt supported by these two women and by Jeff and the entirety of the staff every step of the way. So it was a wonderful experience, and so I can attest to the fact that they're open and transparent and willing to work along with you. I also worked with Mary Jo consistently. I irritate Mary Jo. I chaired the diversity committee of the family law section for the past 2 years, and she has allowed us to have seminars on almost a monthly basis for at least 6 months. There were 1-hour seminars that we did in the evenings or lunch, and it was a breeze. We gave 1-hour CLE credit. It might be something that, Mark, you guys think about to start.
Yeah.
And I don't want to use this opportunity to promote the family law section, but I'm going to use this opportunity. We really feel as though we can touch every section of the bar because everybody has a family, whether it's biological or one that you create your own self. And we'd like to have mixers with you all in a social environment, whether it be the family law section and e-discovery or the family law section and the criminal law section. We are interested in joining with you, and we put on seminars throughout the year, and we're also interested in social mixers. So if you're interested in getting together, I like to say we like to go someplace where beautiful people exist and pretend. And so if you're interested, I have my cards. I'd like to join forces with you guys to.
Go ahead. That was a great idea, but
To have a mixer, that's it. And my 5 questions, if you need me to repeat, I will.
Can I just follow up? I agree, I think that's a great idea, because we're thinking about doing some similar cross-section mixers, which kind of brings me to the point. Is it possible to maybe contract on a regular basis to have a cross-section mixer and then just kind of fit them in, so we have maybe a scheduled monthly cross-section mixer where you guys could contract the cost down to make it affordable for the sections?
Yeah, and that's something, again, a little bit on a smaller bit of a scale that we could.
Well, I think we'd fit in, you know, the sections that are interested in doing that, but maybe if there was a venue that was consistent, at a consistent price, then, you know.
We can look at that. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Ron, you want to take?
Yep, I'll try to, I'll try to take those accounting questions, and I'll deal with the ones that I remembered and the ones that I forget, if you can remind me. I'll deal with I think the last one you asked, the staff labor and other expenses. That line item, we originally called that overhead, and people didn't like that term, so we renamed it staff labor and other expenses, but shown on the good faith estimate, that is the 30% allocation line. So there's not a separate component. That is what that component is. To one of your other questions is for webcast revenue, is there a 30% fee associated with that? There's a 30% fee charged to every single program, whether it's a program, an institute, or any programming that takes place. It's automatically at 30% of the revenue. And you say, well, how did we come up with it? And which goes to one of your other questions is what is made up of that component? That component is made up of all of the costs of ICLE. So it's the total ICLE department, meaning salaries, benefits, computer programming costs. One of our computer programs just costs $5,000 a month. So that's just a sample, but it's basically everything to run ICLE, rent, et cetera. So what we did is we did the best kind of estimate that we could. We took all those costs, and then we divided that by the anticipated revenue and tried to say, what is that relationship? And that worked out to be 30%. Now, will we be tweaking that based upon year end now after the numbers are final? Yes, ma'am, we will. But I think it's fairly close to where we're going to end up, but I wouldn't want to promise that, but I think it's fairly close.
Right. And so the remainder webcast income goes back to the section?
No.
Okay, so then that was one of the questions, how is that income treated?
That income stays as part of the ICLE income is what we're trying to do. There are also costs to do that webcast. There may be some costs associated with that, but we're not trying to have ICLE be profitable at all. So if we adjust and gave that revenue back to a section, then maybe we would have to change that overhead factor as well. We're trying to make that bottom line of ICLE be as close to zero as possible. So it's not that we're trying to make money or in any type of adversarial way. We're trying to do the best programming we can at the least expensive cost. So that if there was a loss, we wouldn't ask any other section. Let's say it wasn't on the ICL, it wasn't on the good faith estimate, and you didn't know up front and something happened. I don't think we'd come back and say, here's a big loss, you didn't know about it, we're not going to demand that you pay that. It's kind of on the flip side too. We're trying to work together for those items. So those items stay within ICLE, but ICLE has not been profitable the last 2 years either. They've had huge losses.
So you don't logistically take 30% of the webcast income, you actually retain all of the webcast income?
We charge that program, we charge every single program, whether it's a webcast or whether it's a program, that money. But we're not taking the money out of the budget. We're not taking it out of your bottom line. Keep in mind that when we do this 30% estimate, we're not going to family law and saying, we're going to take 30% from you. What we're doing is we're running this budget, and what we're doing is if the budget says there's a $5,000 loss, we're asking them to do to have you guys fund that $5,000, but we're not taking that money from your account. It only is a budgetary transfer from the costs below the line, our salaries and overhead and other costs. We're just transferring a cost from one section of ICLE to another section of ICLE. We're not charging you for that money. We're charging the program on paper, but we're not taking anything out of your section account for that at all.
Bill Dillon from the antitrust section. Maybe we're getting too far into the weeds on this, but my section has, let's say, a $20,000 budget. We're going to host a CLE for 100 people in a month. And let's say, we have our good faith estimate and the whole thing all in is $5,000, just to throw numbers out. And I have a good faith estimate. I don't remember what the numbers are. I've slept since I signed it. Let's just say that his hurricane comes during my CLE, it happens, and only 50 people show up, and we generate half the revenue that we thought we would generate. Okay, so we have these expenses. We have $2,500 worth of revenue. Is my section going to be budget, my $15,000 that I'm sitting on? Is that going to be reduced by $2,500 because of his hurricane?
Go back to the answer that I gave earlier. When we produce the good faith estimate, we're agreeing that that is going to be the amount we're expecting from you. And you sign off if you have a balance. It looks like you're going to have to use your numbers, $5,000. There are no changes in terms of your section makes no additions, doesn't add anything like a cocktail reception, doesn't add anything on the fly to increase the cost. And there's an event which occurs and something happens and the revenue doesn't come in where it should have. And you had authority from your section for the $5,000. And now it looks like it didn't work out. And let's say you need another $5,000 to make up the difference. That's where we would work with you. And we may ask you to pay nothing. And we absorb it.
To kick in half of it?
Right. And that's where we would sit down and determine what was fair based upon your fund balance. A lot of sections have tremendous fund balances. Some sections have very thin fund balances. And so that's where we would obviously have a conversation. And again, as Ivory said, I mean, we would be fair. We even adjust the overhead costs sometimes if it looks like we can do that. I mean, those are the kinds of things that we work toward is ultimate fairness. What we have right now with the 30% is our best estimate based upon a year's worth of data. As we get more data, that number is going to be tweaked. As Ron said, we're not trying to run a profitable organization. We're just trying to break even. Right now, the webcast revenue is kind of baked into the number because we're anticipating a certain amount of webcast revenue to come in on the ICLE side to help reduce our expenses. If we gave that webcast or put that webcast revenue into the section account, then our expenses would be higher on the ICLE side, and instead of a 35%, instead of a 30%, we might have a 35% multiplier. So the webcast revenue right now is kind of baked in the total number because we're counting on it to come in. We don't have to expend a substantial amount of staff overhead in that. Obviously, we're producing it, getting it online. We have an IT team at ICLE. ICLE is a 20-person staff. It's as big as some of your law firms. You think about we have almost 50 sections of the bar, 51 sections of the bar.
51 people.
We produce 300 plus seminars a year in addition to these institutes. These institutes are bigger than the State Bar of Georgia's annual meeting. The one at Family Law it has 30% more people coming to it than our annual meeting does for the bar. It is a tremendously successful event. It costs a lot of money, but it's good value to the members. If you go around and look at CLE programming in any other state, I challenge you to look at it and see if you can get the same value for the same money in any other state, and you're not going to be able to find it. We have exceptionally good value seminars here, and we'll continue to do that and work with all of you to make sure that we can keep the costs low. But your worst case fears, I hope they never come true, but if they do, and we have worked through the hurricanes with you guys, we've negotiated attrition clauses. And that's one of the benefits we have now. We've got some attrition issues right now with a certain institute. We're trying to leverage with them to take away, it's about $20,000 or $30,000 in attrition for this particular seminar. We're trying to negotiate with that particular entity right now by providing them other seminars for future events, and that's where we can leverage all of you together, because a lot of you are going to have seminars at the same locations. And so if we can go back to the Amelia Omni and say, well, we've got 2 big seminars that actually want to come here, we can help negotiate some of these things for the benefit of everybody. So that's what we're trying to do, is keep your costs low. I mean, the easy thing to do would just be to turn to the section and say, well, you know, it didn't work out. We had a $20,000 attrition. This particular section has $20,000 in their account. We could take the money out and be done with it. But we're trying to work with the hotel, trying to negotiate with them. Again, it's all, you know, we're dealing with the best contingencies we can, but we all are negotiating in good faith on both sides.
Rivka, stand up and say who you're with.
Rivka Monheit, and I'm the section chair for the IP law section. I'm not sure if this is already covered, so I apologize in advance. For not for the institutes, but just for the regular CLE, how far in advance do you need to set up these good faith estimates and get it organized with ICLE? We routinely have like lunch meetings.
They don't do those.
Not anymore.
No, well, no, we don't do good faith estimates for like the hour-long and 2-hour-long
Yeah,
things. I do
we don't have to do
personalized
that.
stuff, not for that, no.
So what lead time do we need with ICLE for those?
And then I do those. I handle all of the 1-hour lunch and learns, 2-hour lunch and learns. They come through me. Best to have 6 weeks.
And there's no limit, because historically, some years ago, there was a limit on how many we could do as a section. That happened like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, that was before,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's before.
Yeah, when,
You guys
that's
do it all
correct.
the time.
We do them all the time,
All
but
the
I
time.
don't,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so no.
we had a problem at one point with ICLE, and we weren't allowed to do it, and we had to get a sponsor.
I don't
through ICLE.
And that
There's
was,
all sorts of shenanigans.
yeah, that was one of the issues when ICLE was a separate entity,
Yeah.
and they were working with the bar. They wanted to ensure that they had the revenue coming to Athens, and so they would limit sections to the lunch and learns, because the lunch and learns didn't bring in as much revenue. Now that the ICLE's in the bar, we're just trying to get programming out. You do all the lunch and learns. You can have one every day if you want. But Mary Jo-
Just for clarity, as long as, if it's 2 hours or under, then
Yeah,
you're
it's
going.
not right, and then if I see you guys going astray, like sometimes y'all do,
I'll bring it.
I'll get ICLE involved, but yeah, I do all of these.
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys are doing like at least sometimes, at least one a month. It's
Oh, yeah,
like
definitely.
easy.
Well, that's why I wanted to be sure,
Yeah.
because
No,
I'm talking to all the committee chairs now, so I
We're
want to
all-
be sure to let them know if we need to.
Y'all are all good on that.
Jenny?
Hey, thank you. Jenny Kolar, Environmental Law Section. I want to circle back to the webcast question because I don't think our section has ever been offered that. Now, I don't know how the decision is made about what you're going to go videotape and provide as a webcast outside of the financial considerations. Just, you know, we would find that valuable potentially for our members for some of our programs. So can you explain that process a little bit?
The decision's economic. If we're at a hotel, AV can be, if it's a multiple day event, can be upwards of $5,000, $6,000. If it is here at the bar, we can certainly do it for a lot less, generally $1,000 to $1,500. So we would just make an analysis as to whether we would think that there would be lawyers who would want to see it, and whether we could, of course, recoup the money spent to do the recording and get it up on the website. So you're talking for just something like a few hours, a 3-hour seminar here at the bar, all in probably $2,500 to $3,000 to put that up, maybe a little bit more. And we would just have to make a determination. But we welcome the conversation, and if you have an interest in that, we can talk about it. Let me move on, because we're about 15 minutes behind, because I want you to hear from Michelle West, who's our new director of ICLE. Michelle has been at the bar for about 5 years as the director of the Transition in Law Practice Program. She just took over the reins of ICLE. Michelle has a lot of experience in planning programming, the Beginning Lawyers Program through ICLE, and so she has literally been in the saddle 2 weeks. But she knows what she's doing, and she's already making significant difference in her role, and I just want to welcome her as the new director. And she's here to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about ICLE.
So I wanted to thank you all again for your commitment and your dedication to the profession and to the sections. As Jeff said, I'm the new kid on the block, so as you learn, I'm learning as well. And I'm also here to listen. What I wanted to stress is that we are working to continue enhancing the level of service that you get with ICLE. What you will see moving forward is you will see some more uniformity and consistency. There will be some rules, procedures changing, and we're doing that so that you are guaranteed the same level of service and you know what to expect every time you go to plan a program. We currently, I know a lot of you have been working with Tanya Wyndham here. She's one of our program coordinators. She's the sections liaison. In the back of the room, we have Alyssa Hubbard. Alyssa, if you would please stand. Alyssa, we have Delois Matthews. And we have Lakeisha Lowe. So these are our soldiers, shall I say, and so they are working for you in order to ensure that you have the best program. One of the things that also I'm sending out, and it's in your materials, is on page 4 of your materials, is there's a transition questionnaire. So in order for us to ensure that we enhance the level of service that you're getting, we have a collaborative partners questionnaire, and it's just basically asking you who you've had contact with in ICLE in the past, and I'm asking to give some information about your collaborative work and some of your interactions, the strength in those interactions and any challenges that you've had. The form will actually be sent out by fillable PDF by email, so you'll be getting it later today. So you're not required to fill that document out, but it does help me in coming and being new, being the new director of ICLE, to get more information on what we can do to move forward to ensure that all of your questions are answered and that we continue to improve our level of service. As Jeff has stated, I was previously the director of the Transition to Law Practice Program, and I did a lot of continuing legal education with that program. But before that, I practiced. I had a solo practice for about 10 years, and I was in the weeds as well. I did a lot of programming for the Georgia Association for Women Lawyers, and I did lunch and learns. I did 3 to 6 credit CLEs. I ran their Leadership Academy, which was a 12 CLE academy that spanned 4 months. For women lawyers who had practiced for 6 years or more. I did that for 3 years. And I've also planned CLEs that are both domestic and international. So I'm not just an administrative, I've also been on the ground doing the work to make sure that I bring forth vibrant and engaging CLEs. And that's what I would like to do here as ICLE director with you and your programming. I want to make sure that your programming is vibrant and that it's thriving and that you are delivering what you want to your members. So that's, being a new kid on the block, I get to learn and I get to listen and I get to hear your input. And so that we can basically take that input and move forward and making ICLE better. So thank you so much for being here today, and I really look forward to working with all of you.
Hey, I'm Tanya Wyndham. I know a lot of you in the room. It's good to see you. I'll forego really any comments because we are behind schedule a little bit, and I want to maintain that. But thank you for your service. I know you're volunteering and you're practicing law, and it takes a lot from you to plan these programs. I've been working with some of you for 4 to 6 months on some of these programs, so I know the time that you freely give to us, and we're here to support you, and we just thank you for what you're doing.
Hello. My name is Carlise Greer. I'm the Executive Director of the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism. And I just wanted to talk with you all a little bit about the professionalism programming. As you may know, there is 1 hour of professionalism required each year for every Georgia attorney. And my office is here to assist you in planning that professionalism programming to ensure that attorneys get the best, highest quality professionalism programming that we have to offer. We recently, my commission in May of this year, passed some revised professionalism CLE guidelines. We went from guidelines of about 20 pages, not including our appendices and extra materials to try and give guidance, to one of about 6 pages. They are in your materials. I also wanted to, if everyone will take out their phone, the easiest way for you to keep track and look at some of the resources that we have available to you is to go to our website, www.cjcpga.org. And if you could pull out your phones and go there now. On our home page, right up under the picture of the Chief Justice, you should be able to scroll down. You'll see a welcome to our State Bar section leaders. And if you click the here, I put together a page of some of the resources on our website so that you don't have to try and navigate the website, find where things are. You have a lot of resources and materials there on one page to help you get started. So I hope that'll be very useful to you. It includes the guidelines, it includes the creed and aspiration statement that you're asked to provide in all of your written materials. Written materials do not have to be hard copy. The last convocation that we planned for the commission in November 2018, we used ebooks. It saves a whole lot of money. So your written materials can be electronic. If you scroll down to the solo and small firm 2018 example, this is what I did last year for the Solo and Small Firm Institute. I put everything on our website. It had all of our written materials, and it was easy for everyone to access. So in addition to sending them to Natalie Kelly, people could just go to our website and look at them too. Makes it easy to comply with the written material requirement. So if you have any questions, if you need any help, feel free to contact us at any time. I have been where you are. I served as the founding vice chair of the Child Protection and Advocacy section, served in that position until I took my new position here with the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism, helped to plan their CLE program, plan their very first CLE as the Child Protection and Advocacy section. So I know how much work it is. I know how much you all are putting into this, and I thank you for your service. If there is anything that I or my office, I want to introduce Shamila Jordan, my assistant sitting in the back. If there is anything either of us can do to help you, please feel free to call on us. Thank you.
Sarah. Hi, my name is Sarah Kuhl, and I'm the Director of Communications here at the bar. And I think mostly you guys are probably interested in how we help ICLE and how we market your events. I'm the first to acknowledge that we have problems with spam filters. Here at the bar, some of our own email goes into our spam filter. It just happens. It changes daily, and we're daily trying to combat that. The best thing that you can do for us is when you're working with Tanya or your other program coordinator, is to give us any information that would help market your seminar. If you have a big speaker, or if you have certain topics that you think would be good to promote, just give us that and we'll certainly get it out. And also, we schedule many social media posts for you guys. We have a whole schedule and a checklist that we go through. So when you see those social media posts out there, we try to tag you. If you could also give us your handles on Twitter, we'll also tag you there. We try to tag you, and if you can retweet and repost that, it gets the word out even more. So that's very helpful. I also wanted to mention, you brought up that a seminar at the bankruptcy guy, I don't remember your name, sorry. You brought up that you searched for something on the website and you didn't find it?
Institute, wasn't it your institute?
Your institute.
Yeah, it's our annual institute in December.
It's in December?
Yes, ma'am.
So is it open for registration?
No.
Okay.
GFE's not been signed yet.
Okay. So the problem with that is if it isn't open for registration, it isn't on the website yet. So as soon as we get through that GFE and we get it open for registration, that's when all the stuff starts happening.
It'll probably go up as soon as you send a save the date, just so people know to save the date.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, and we have, so bringing ICLE, they had all of their own stuff. They had their own website, their own social media. Bringing all of that into the bar has been tricky, to say the least, and trying to marry the two together. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do that. We have put it on the website before, and then people go to it and they can't register, and then they get mad.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act of what's working, and we're still working through all of that to make sure that we do it the best way.
And I can always provide email lists to you guys if y'all want to reach out yourself, you know, until all of this gets straightened out. I'm glad to do that.
Yeah. I think that's all that I have. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them as well.
Anybody? Okay, y'all are not finished yet, because you've got me for the next 45 minutes to discuss day-to-day stuff. Anybody have any questions for the panel? Yes?
Quick clarification from Ron. You said on the lead time for those events that exceed Johnny Lee, We Discovered Geek. For those that exceed 2 hours, like an all-day seminar, did you say 4 months was the preferred lead time?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Anybody else have anything before we go into the section chair handbook and some other housekeeping stuff? Can I release them? Thank you guys so much for coming.